Hansel and Gretel, Part 1. A small house near the forest. At the edge of a wide forest, there stood a very small house. The forest stretched far behind it, quiet and deep. Tall trees stood close together, their leaves moving softly in the air. The house was old but strong. Its wooden walls were pale and worn. The roof was simple and low. Inside, the rooms were dim and calm. Light entered slowly through small windows. Shadows rested quietly on the floor. Hansel and Gretel lived there with their father and stepmother. Life in the house was simple. Food was plain. The days were long and quiet. Their father worked hard. Their stepmother was often tired. No one spoke loudly. There was little anger, only worry. At night, the house became very still. Hansel and Gretel shared a small room. Their beds were close together. Hansel liked to stay awake for a while. He listened to the forest, the wind in the trees, the soft sounds outside. Gretel liked the quiet before sleep. She liked knowing Hansel was near. They trusted each other deeply. They felt safe when they were together. That night, the forest was unusually quiet. The air felt heavy. Hansel stayed awake, listening. Part 2. A quiet plan from the other room. Hansel heard soft voices. They were low and careful, not angry, just tired and worried. Gretel opened her eyes slowly. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Hansel nodded without speaking. They listened together. The voices spoke of food, of long days, of the forest nearby. Hansel felt a small weight in his chest. He stayed calm. After a while, the voices faded. The house returned to silence. Hansel waited. He listened again. Then, very quietly, he stood up. He opened the door without making a sound and stepped outside. The night air was cool and still. The moon hung low and bright. The ground shimmered softly. Hansel bent down and picked up small white stones. They were smooth and cold. He filled his pockets slowly, one stone at a time. He did not hurry. When he returned, Gretel was sitting up in bed. Hansel showed her the stones. "We will remember the way," he whispered gently. Gretel felt calmer. She held his hand. Together they lay back down and waited for morning. Part 3. The first walk into the forest morning came slowly. Light touched the windows. The house woke quietly. Soon Hansel and Gretel walked toward the forest with their family. The forest felt cool and wide. Tall trees rose above them. Light moved gently between the leaves. Hansel walked a little behind. No one noticed. He dropped a white stone on the ground. Then another. Then another. Each stone rested quietly in place. They walked deeper into the forest. The air smelled fresh and green. After some time they stopped. The forest became still again. Later, when the moon rose, Hansel looked back. The stones shone softly in the moonlight, like tiny stars on the ground. "Let's go home," Hansel said gently. Gretel nodded. They followed the shining path. stone by stone, step by step. The forest felt kind. Soon, the small house appeared again. That night, Hansel and Gretel slept peacefully. The forest stayed quiet. Part 4. The second walk time passed. The days returned to their quiet rhythm. But one evening, the soft voices came back. Hansel listened carefully. This time, he could not go outside. The door stayed closed. Morning came again. They walked toward the forest once more. Hansel reached into his pocket, but there were no stones, only a small piece of bread. As they walked, Hansel dropped small crumbs along the path. The crumbs fell softly on the ground. Birds watched from the trees. They waited. The forest felt deeper now, the light dimmer. Later, when the forest grew still again, Hansel looked back. The crumbs were gone. The path behind them was quiet and empty. Hansel felt his heart slow. Gretel held his hand tightly. They stood together, listening to the forest breathe. They were lost, but they were together. Part 5. Lost, but together. The forest grew quiet around them. Tall trees stood close together. Their branches moved slowly in the air. Hansel and Gretel did not rush. They walked carefully, step by step. The light between the trees was soft and dim. Shadows rested on the ground. They stopped often. They listened. Sometimes they heard the wind. Sometimes they heard nothing at all. Hansel spoke gently. "We will keep walking," he said. Slowly. Gretel nodded. She stayed close to him. They rested under a large tree. The ground felt cool beneath them. As evening came, the sky above the forest darkened. Small stars appeared between the branches. The night air was calm. They lay down side by side. They shared their warmth. They were tired, but they were not afraid. Being together made the forest feel quieter, softer. Morning came slowly, with pale light and cool air. Hansel stood up and looked ahead, and then, between the trees, he saw something different. Part 6. A house made of sweet things. In a small clearing, there stood a little house. It looked warm and gentle. Its walls shone softly in the light. The roof was pale and bright. The air around it smelled sweet. Hansel and Gretel stopped. They looked carefully. They listened. The forest around the house was still. They stepped closer, slowly. The house felt real. It felt quiet. Hansel touched the wall gently. Gretel followed him. Just then, a soft voice came from inside. "Come in," the voice said calmly. The door opened. Inside, the house was warm and dim. The light was gentle. An old woman stood there. Her movements were slow. Her voice was soft. "You may rest here," she said. Hansel and Gretel felt very tired. They sat down quietly. They ate slowly. The room felt peaceful. The forest outside remained silent. Part 7. Quiet wisdom time passed gently in the house. There was no hurry. Hansel watched carefully. He noticed small things. Gretel listened closely. She felt the air in the room. Nothing felt loud. Nothing felt sudden. Still, something felt uncertain. Not dangerous, just unfamiliar. Hansel and Gretel spoke quietly at night. They whispered to each other. They remembered the forest. They remembered home. Gretel felt a calm strength inside her. She stayed close to her brother. She trusted him. Hansel stayed steady. He listened. He waited. They knew one thing clearly. They would not be separated. They would decide together. Part 8. Home and Rest. One morning, the house felt different. The air was lighter. The light was brighter. Gretel stood quietly. She took a deep, slow breath. She felt ready. When the old woman left the room, Gretel opened the door. Fresh air flowed inside. Hansel stood beside her. They stepped outside together. The forest welcomed them back. The trees looked familiar now. The path felt softer under their feet. They walked calmly. They did not rush. Step by step, the forest opened. Soon they saw the small house, their home. Their father waited. The forest stood quietly behind them. That night, Hansel and Gretel lay in bed. The wind moved gently outside the window. Their breathing slowed, their thoughts softened. They were safe. They were together. And slowly, peacefully, they fell asleep.